You are on a ship carrying 6,000 people. You are 7 days from the nearest port. The ocean stretches in every direction, 360 degrees of it, deep blue and impossibly vast. And somewhere below your feet, in a part of the ship you will never see, something extraordinary is happening. The water in your cabin tap did not come from a tank. It did not come from a port. 24 hours ago, it was the ocean. Most people never think about this. Why would they? The tap works. The shower is hot. The ice in your drink is clean. The whole experience is designed to feel as normal as a mid-range hotel, which is exactly the point. But the moment you start asking where the water actually comes from, the answer opens into something much larger than a simple logistics question. A cruise ship is not a luxury hotel that floats. It is a water manufacturing plant that also sells vacations. And understanding how it solves that problem reveals one of the most quietly impressive pieces of engineering hiding in plain sight on the modern ocean. Start with the math. A large cruise ship carries around 6,000 passengers. Each passenger uses, on average, between 200 and 250 liters of water per day for showers, taps, toilets, laundry, and drinking. Run that number at scale. 6,000 people, 250 liters each every single day. That is 1.5 million liters. Daily, just for passengers before the crew is counted, before the kitchens are counted, before the pools, the spas, the industrial laundry operations, the fire suppression systems, the engine cooling loops. The real daily water demand on a ship like this rivals the output of a small municipal water treatment plant. Except the municipal plant does not move, it does not rock. It is not surrounded by salt water it cannot use. So the obvious assumption, that the ship must be carrying all this water somehow, collapses almost immediately under its own numbers. The largest cruise ships can store around 500,000 gallons of fresh water in tanks built into the hull. That sounds like a lot. It is not enough. Even with full tanks, a ship of this size would exhaust its reserves in less than 2 days. And if you tried to simply carry enough water to last a full 7-day voyage, the weight and space required would displace fuel, displace food cold storage, throw off stability, and turn the lower decks into one enormous unusable water cellar. The ship cannot carry its water supply. So it makes it continuously while moving. Here is the first hidden constraint the system has to solve. The ocean surrounding the ship is the wrong kind of water. Seawater is not just water with some salt in it. Drinking it in meaningful quantities is physiologically dangerous. The salt concentration forces your kidneys to expel more water than you consumed, which means seawater actively dehydrates you. It is water that makes thirst worse. The ocean is the largest water source on Earth and essentially unusable in its natural state. This is not a new problem, but solving it at the scale a modern cruise ship requires, while also managing fuel, space, and energy, is where the engineering gets serious. The second constraint is geography. The ship cannot simply run its water production systems whenever it wants. Flash evaporators, one of the 2 primary production methods, cannot operate within 4 nautical miles of shore because nearshore water carries sediment, biological contamination, and pollutants that would foul the system. Reverse osmosis plants, the other main method, require a minimum water depth of around 50 meters before the intake water is clean enough not to destroy the membranes. Every time the ship docks and for every port visit, every 8-hour stop at a Caribbean island or a Norwegian fjord, the primary water production systems shut down. The clock starts. The only supply is whatever is sitting in the storage tanks. The production window reopens only once the ship clears the threshold, and the ocean beneath it is deep, clean, and open again. This is the invisible pressure that defines the entire system. The ship is not just building water, it is building water against a deadline, against geography, against the physics of salt and membranes, and against the reality that 6,000 people have no idea any of this is happening. Now the machine itself. The older and still widely used method is flash evaporation, and it is elegant in a way that only industrial engineering can be. The main diesel engines that drive the ship generate enormous heat as they run. That heat has to go somewhere. It is carried away by a jacket cooling water system that circulates around the engine blocks, absorbing thermal energy and preventing the engines from destroying themselves. This water runs at between 75 and 95 degrees Celsius. That is the key, because the ship's engineers realize that this waste heat, rather than being dumped uselessly into the sea, could be redirected into the water production process. Inside a flash evaporator, seawater is pumped in and fed into a low-pressure chamber held under vacuum. Under normal atmospheric pressure, water boils at 100 degrees Celsius. But under vacuum, the boiling point drops significantly. The hot incoming seawater, already heated by the engine, cooling loop enters this low-pressure environment and instantly flashes into steam. Not slowly, not gently, but almost explosively in a fraction of a second. The salt cannot flash. It stays behind in concentrated brine. The steam rises, hits a cooler condenser surface, and converts back into liquid. Distilled water, collected and pumped toward the storage tanks. This process is repeated across multiple stages. The brine from the first flash chamber moves to a second chamber at even lower pressure and flashes again. The residual heat is wrung out at each stage. A large ship runs two of these systems, one in the forward engine room and one in the aft, because the ship has two separate engine compartments for redundancy. And each engine room gets its own evaporator, so that a fire or flooding event cannot take out both production systems at once. Losing water production at sea is not an inconvenience. It is an emergency. The redundancy is not comfort engineering. It is survival engineering. Each flash evaporator produces around 20 to 25 cubic meters of fresh water per hour under normal conditions. The output depends on engine load and seawater temperature. Colder water absorbs more heat from the engine loop, which means higher northern latitudes actually produce better evaporator output than tropical routes. The other method is reverse osmosis, and it solves the problem through pressure rather than heat. Raw seawater is pumped to very high pressure and forced through a semi-permeable membrane, a material with pores small enough to allow water molecules to pass through while physically blocking salt ions, bacteria, organic compounds, and dissolved solids. The rejected material, now a highly concentrated brine, is discharged back into the sea. The permeate, the water that made it through, is collected. Reverse osmosis systems are more compact than flash evaporators, take up less deck space, and do not depend on engine heat. They are also energy-intensive in their own right, because maintaining the pressure needed to push seawater through a membrane continuously is not free. Most large ships run both systems in parallel, using evaporators as the primary workhorse and RO plants as backup and supplemental production. Together, major lines like Royal Caribbean produce up to 90% of their onboard water this way. Both systems are watched constantly by a salinometer, a continuous monitor measuring the salt content of the outgoing water. The standard threshold is 10 parts per million. If the salinity climbs above that, the water is not routed to the passenger system. A three-way valve automatically redirects it overboard. The batch is dumped. The system self-corrects. No one above decks knows this happened. But here is the twist that most explanations skip, and it is the most counterintuitive part of the whole system. The water produced by a flash evaporator or a reverse osmosis plant is not ready to drink. Not because it is too dirty, because it is too clean. Pure distilled water, water with no mineral content at all, and said is corrosive to metal pipes. It also tastes wrong, in a way that is hard to describe until you drink it. Flat, slightly metallic, lifeless. More importantly, it does not have the mineral balance the human body expects. Completely demineralized water is not good for you in large quantities, and it will actively attack the plumbing infrastructure trying to deliver it. So after the salt is removed, the ship has to put things back in. The water passes through mineralizer beds, containers packed with calcite granules that dissolve small amounts of calcium and other minerals into the water as it flows through, a process maritime engineers sometimes call rehardening. Carbon dioxide is injected to bring the pH down into the safe range between 7.2 and 7.6. Then comes chlorination, maintaining a free chlorine concentration of around 2 to 2.5 parts per million, sometimes supplemented by UV irradiation or silver ion treatment. The system disinfects, mineralizes, and pH balances what was formerly the ocean, and then delivers it through kilometers of pipe to 6,000 cabins. The ship spent significant energy removing everything from the ocean to get pure water. Then it spent additional effort putting a controlled set of things back in. That faint difference you might notice between ship tap water and tap water at home. Slightly mineral forward, slightly chlorinated. That is the chemistry of the remineralization system. It is the machine's fingerprint. There is another twist worth sitting with. Modern cruise ships increasingly fill their swimming pools with fresh water instead of seawater. A ship surrounded by unlimited ocean, producing fresh water at industrial scale, deliberately uses that manufactured fresh water to fill its recreational pools. The reason is not passenger comfort, it is corrosion. Saltwater destroys pump impellers, filter housings, and pool infrastructure at a much faster rate than fresh water. Using the ocean in the pools would mean dramatically higher maintenance costs and shorter equipment lifespans, so the pools get fresh water. Desalination as maintenance strategy, not just hydration. Meanwhile, the same scale that creates the water demand creates the waste problem. A ship carrying 3,000 passengers on a 7-day voyage generates roughly 210,000 gallons of black water from toilets and over 1 million gallons of gray water from showers, sinks, and laundry. The water machine runs in both directions. Factory on one end, treatment plant on the other. Gray water and black water are processed separately through onboard biological and chemical treatment systems before any discharge, and release is governed by international regulations that vary by jurisdiction. Alaska operates the strictest enforcement regime in the world for this. The rest of the ocean is a patchwork, and when the ship is in port, sitting at the dock for 8 hours, taking on passengers and supplies, the desalination systems are offline, the production clock is running, and the ship can accept water from port infrastructure. But port water is primarily used for non-potable purposes: cooling, ballast, laundry. Drinking water stays as stored manufactured product, or is treated to the same exacting standard before it touches a passenger tap. The ship never fully depends on shore. The same logic that governs a cruise ship water system governs Antarctic research stations, submarines, and spacecraft. Anytime humans are removed from municipal infrastructure at scale and placed into a sealed environment, someone has to engineer the complete water cycle from scratch. The cruise ship is simply the most commercially successful version of this problem. Wrapped in deck chairs and buffet dinners and the polished illusion of effortless comfort. That illusion is not accidental. It is the product. The ship is designed to feel like a place where water simply exists, where the tap delivers what you expect, where nothing below the waterline enters your awareness. The engine rooms that cool themselves into producing water, the vacuum chambers that flash salt away in microseconds, the mineralizer beds that rebuild something drinkable from something that was recently the ocean. None of this is visible. None of it is supposed to be. You turn the tap. Water comes out. Cold, clean, faintly different from what you have at home in a way you might not even consciously register. That difference is real. It is the trace of a system working invisibly beneath decks you will never visit, solving a problem you never thought to ask about. The ocean is everywhere. You are floating on the largest water supply on Earth. And without the machines running below you, none of it is drinkable. That is the situation the ship solved, quietly at industrial scale and then built a vacation around. Scarcity and abundance existing in the same place at the same time. That is what engineering actually does. It takes the wrong kind of resource and turns it into the right one.